As a kid growing up, I loved Jules Verne and dreamt of grand adventures. As I got older, I knew I wanted to go on my own adventure and discover something bigger than myself. That's why I started Rabbit Hole. I've had to be bold, face challenges, and take risks. And it's in that spirit that I created Heigold, a high-rye double malt bourbon. Heigold is a modern take on a Kentucky favorite. Unlike most bourbons that use rye as a secondary flavor ingredient, Heigold's mash bill is made up of 25% malted rye and 5% malted barley.
So malted rye in itself is a very, I would say, niche product because it's not a very common. Unmalted rye has a little bit of a more sharp, stingy flavor. And if you have malted rye, it's much more mellow, much more malty, sweet, a little bit toffee flavor, and sometimes even a little bit of that Nutella flavor.
Francisca Weirman has grown up around grains all her life. This is her family malthouse in Denver, Germany, where we get our malted rye.
Weirman has been a family-owned company for more than 141 years. My mother is the fourth generation. Together with my father, I'm the fifth generation. And we love malt. I never wanted to do anything else, and I never want to do anything else.
In here, malters try to replicate the same conditions the grains experience out in nature, tricking them into thinking it's spring and producing enzymes and starch that go a long way in the fermentation process.
It adds a lot of complexity to the flavor.
First, they steep the grain.
It's like a big swimming pool for the grains.
This kickstarts the next step of the process, germination, when the grain begins to grow.
There's a very high moisture content for the grain, and this is to make the grain feel like it's outside again and it's wet and it wants to start growing. And this process helps us to start transforming the starch that is already in the kernel to the malt sugars. The next step in this process is kilning, and in this process we want to tell the kernel it's sunny outside and you now have to stop growing again. The kernel also picks up a little bit of color and a little bit of caramel flavors.
A few days later, the grains are ready to be packaged and make the long journey from Germany to our distillery in Louisville, Kentucky. Here at home, we like to pay homage to another German immigrant, Christian Heigold. The facade of his 1853 home stands tall near the Ohio River, where he hand-carves patriotic symbols onto stone as a tribute to his new adopted home. His contributions to our community have left a lasting impression, as I hope do mine. Our state-of-the-art distillery is just minutes away from here. Inside, the yeast is feasting on our malted grains. For the yeast, there's just no better meal than this. And it shows in the flavor. Hints of butterscotch with toasted malt are followed by a brief crescendo of citrus and spice. Our toasted and charred bells add even a deeper layer to the experience. Just look at what Heigold looks like before it goes into the barrel. After years of mingling with the wood, the liquid picks up its signature caramel hue, growing even more complex by the season. For me, bourbon is more than a drink. It's families like Francisca's that dedicate their lives to small batch grains. It's about the makers that turn it into a beautiful spirit. It's those unforgettable moments with the people I love. But most of all, it's about bringing people together. A legacy in the making that I hope lives on long after I'm gone.